Good evening, José María. Good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be back in Madrid. I have very fond memories of working with Expansión when you were cousins of the Financial Times, with Jaime Castellanos Recoletos had a stake in Pearson that owned the Financial Times. Well, a lot of water has gone under the bridge, but I'm pleased to be invited back. Now, we're going to have a big picture discussion this evening. It's going to be absolutely fascinating because we're going to talk about the future of the telecoms industry. We're going to talk about Europe's special place. And we're also going to talk about technology and innovation, all inside 20 minutes. But I don't want to depress you before dinner, but I do want to quote President Macron just the other day when he gave a very important speech at the Sorbonne on Europe, and he said, "Our Europe is mortal. It can die." Now, you and I have talked a bit about Europe, and you certainly think that Europe is at a crossroads. Can you talk about why you've come to that view?
Certainly. Your Majesty, first allow me to start by saying thank you for the invitation. We are really honored to be here. Well, first, we need to understand that we are living the deepest technological revolution in human history. This is 4 times the size of the Industrial Revolution. And therefore, everything is going to change, not just economy, culture, politics, everything is going to be affected. And it's going to happen very fast. I mean, we are just starting. It's the confluence between AI, more computing power, blockchain, and next generation networks. And therefore, a huge wave of innovation is going to come. And therefore, we need to decide as Europe, what do we imagine Europe is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And therefore, it's time to take decisions now. I don't think we are ready. I don't think we are having a clear vision of where we want to stand. And what we can say is that we are not starting in a leading position. Europe used to be the home line of innovation, at least in our sector. The GSMA standard was developed here. The UMTS standard was developed here. But neither 4G or 5G has been developed here. So time has come to decide where we're going to be, where we want to be in 5 to 10 years, and take actions for that. And we are not doing that.
Well, we know that Mario Draghi, the former president of the European Central Bank and Prime Minister of Italy, is preparing a report on competitiveness. So I've been reading all his speeches to get some clues. And there are a couple of big insights. One is, he's clear, scale matters. So do you expect a wave of consolidation in the telecoms industry? Because you talked about a fragmented market.
Yeah, I think that we are, in order to give you an idea, we have more telecom players in Spain than in China. We have more telecom players in Spain than in the US. So I think that e-market consolidation is deeply needed. And I think that we have, as the governor was saying, the market is too fragmented. We don't have a common European policy for spectrum. So it's time to have more Europe in terms of more harmonized rules at the level of Europe, and a different approach to competition. Because we judge the impact of competition about the number of antennas that are on each roof. We want to have 5 or 6 antennas on each roof. And the spillover, negative spillover effects of that is that we are killing innovation, we are killing next generation technologies, because there is no money to have so many antennas, and at the same time, R&D. So I do think that a deep reflection is needed. I think that competition needs to be redefined. I think that we are judging competition with 20th century rules, and we are in the 21st century. And then I think we need to approach the indirect effects of competition, not just on pricing, but also on innovation, on job creation, or job destruction. So I do think that something needs to change.
Well, I know we've had Brexit, but Britain is still part of Europe. So how about buying BT? It's only worth £9 billion now. Stock's gone down.
I think that would even be too much for us because we own VMO2, so I don't think we'll be allowed. Yeah. But it's not just the case of BT. The whole telecom sector value has been slashed in the last 20 years.
And the point, though, is that the business model has been blown up because of big tech companies. And we should talk about that. I mean, you are making all your money from their fixed line and then mobile, but they're piggybacking on your network.
Well, it's a pretty schizophrenic situation because our product, our core product, which is data, is growing 30 to 40% every year. So imagine a car factory that needs to produce 30 to 40% more cars every year. But more than 50% of the capacity of the networks in Europe, more than 50% is being used by 5 players who pay nothing for the use of the network, because that's the model. So my point is that we are investing in the wrong places because we are adding, it's kind of adding a lane to the same highway every year, but this highway is not reaching more cities because we need to invest in more lanes that in terms of coverage. So my point is that there is something wrong in the equation. I mean, there is a wrong business model, and that's why we are forced to invest very heavily, but we are not earning our cost of capital.
So what's the answer?
Well, I think that nobody would allow those kind of companies to build or to develop their products and services by consuming 50% of the oxygen or 50% of the water. We need to assume that networks are a scarce resource and it's a common resource. We are not building networks for a few, we are building networks for everybody. So whoever is having an irresponsible use of common resources, whether to be water, electricity, or anything, or oxygen, we need to pay for that. So whoever is consuming more than 5% of the capacity of the network, we'll give them 2 years to get below that, and if they don't get below that point, then somebody will need to decide what's the kind of compensation they need to do for others not to be affected by their behavior. So the main message here is that somebody is doing an irresponsible use of common resources.
You see, José María, I think that you and I have something in common here because we in the media also felt that the big tech companies were just giving our content away for free. And I remember having to, our company at the Financial Times saying, we've got to do something. So I said, what are you going to do? They said, we're going to send a letter to Google headquarters in Mountain View. I said, maybe you should send an email. But they wanted to give everything away for free. This is the point. Piggybacking.
Yeah, but we are getting back to the initial part of our conversation. Technology is going faster than the way we rule it, than the way we discuss as society how we want this to happen. So that's why I'm saying I don't think it's time for technology. We're going to have as much technology as we want. It's time for social sciences. It's time for philosophy, and we have Carissa Bellit here. It's time for sociology, anthropology. It's time for law. It's time for economy. It's time for social sciences. It's about how do we want this to happen? What is the new social contract we want to have?
Well, let's start with one building block, which is data. And you and I agree that data is the new resource. It's like oil was. So how do you price data? How do you get a proper market price linked to your infrastructure?
I go slightly beyond your point. I don't think data is a resource. I think data is a production factor.
Right.
This technological revolution has created a new production factor. Till now, we were working with 2 basic production factors, which are capital and labor. And now we have discovered that data has a value. And I think data is part of my personal sovereignty, is part of my dignity. Nobody can expropriate my data without a proper compensation. So it's about defining the global framework. It's about defining the new social contract. If we were to decide that data is part of my sovereignty, then that's a new discussion, because therefore nobody could expropriate my data for free. Nobody can force me to work for free. I mean, so it's kind of digital slavery. So in that regard, I think that time has come to define what data is. And data has a value. The Microsoft Research Center has calculated that the value of a year of data of a family of 4 members in the US is worth somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 per year. So if we were to assume that in Spain there are kind of 10 million units of 4 family members, then there is 250 billion or $400 billion of Spanish GDP that is not in our accounts. Where is that money? And that money belongs to Spanish citizens. So we need to start by discussing these kind of things.
Well, you rightly say that you need to win the intellectual argument. And clearly, that will partly depend on your success in persuading people in Brussels, where laws are made. So what progress have you made so far?
We have Brussels representatives here. I mean, we have this discussion is open and ongoing in Brussels. I mean, the Commission.
That sounds very diplomatic.
But you have the letter report that is opening that kind of debate, and you have an ongoing report from Mario Draghi as well. I think that the debate is open. And honestly, I think Europe is the right place to open that debate, because Europe is not depending on that business model for the future. We don't have digital champions in that regard that are using data for free. I think that business model of using data for free is obsolete. They are the new incumbents.
Yes, I mean, I do think that, and we heard this earlier this afternoon with Señaló, that, you know, people are saying deepening the single market is absolutely crucial, loosening the competition rules, and he signaled out, as has Mario Draghi, that telecoms is got to be part of the equation.
Listen, I don't think it's loosening the competition. I think it's redefining, because we are judging competition with the...
You really are a diplomat.
No. I'm going beyond that. I think that the definition of relevant market is wrong.
Yeah.
I think that there is something intrinsically wrong in the methodology. I'm no longer competing just with Vodafone or Orange or MásMóvil or Digi here. I'm competing with people that is using voice over IP. I'm competing with people that is doing TV on streaming. So the definition of the pay TV market is wrong. Right. I mean, there is. I'm supposed to be. We are supposed to be the leader on pay TV in Spain, but there is no measure on the market shares of digital streaming champions. So my main battle is that, you know, there is something wrong on the methodology.
Right. So I'm going to ask you to change role from demandeur and become the spokesman for innovation. So you're not asking favors. You're going to tell us about the future. But answer me one question. Why is it, and this again is in a Draghi speech recently, only 4 European tech companies are in the top 50 tech companies worldwide? Why?
Because I think that we have the wrong incentives. Europe used to be the homeland of innovation, but we have decided that we want to have as many telecom operators in Spain, and therefore we don't have money to spend on R&D. So I think that is the wrong incentive model. We have the wrong industrial policy.
Mm-hmm. Do you need to strengthen or do things for the venture capital industry, though?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, yes. But I think that most of the innovation happens around the existing corporate centers.
Right.
We need to open our innovation center. We need to have startups, accelerators. We need to have the right ecosystem. But at the end, we distribute those products and services. So they need to happen as close as possible to existing players.
Right. You talked about 3 gigantically important new technological forces: quantum computing, blockchain, and AI. We don't have time to go into all those 3. So, I'm not a scientist, I'm a linguist. So help me on AI. Describe for me what you think the future will look like in society, because this is about real profound changes in society, employment. What's it going to look like in 5 years' time? And what role will Telefónica play?
There are 4 forces. On top of the 3 you mentioned, the next generation network, because when you deploy fiber and 5G, the resulting thing is no longer a telecommunication network. It's a massively decentralized supercomputer. Yeah. So when you see this thing and you start reading what is the data that is flowing through it, I can tell you that today close to 50% of the data traffic today is no longer human. Those are machines talking to machines and machines talking to humans, and most of the time humans are not understanding that they're talking to machines. So, and AI is not just one single technology, it's a scope of technology. We are talking about deep learning, we are talking about machine learning, we are talking about image recognition, speech recognition, and they all retrofit each other. And we see them flowing through a network. And the explosion of traffic this is creating is going to make that the cloud players are not going to be able to cope with this explosion of traffic anymore, and we need to find a way to process as many data as possible at the edge of the network, because it's very expensive to transfer data from the edge to the network to the cloud, process and send it backwards. It's very inefficient from an energy standpoint. So I think that AI is going to change the business models. I think AI is going to have a massive impact. It's going to create new employments. It's going to destroy all jobs. We need to manage that transition. I think that in our case, the way our networks are being operated are radically different. We started to apply AI to our network 8 years ago, and you see the network starting to think by itself. Our network is starting to repair itself before it's broken. We are saving 40% of the repairs by applying AI. We call it autonomous network, but you see them thinking, and you see them projecting their behavior.
Should we be worried about that? I mean, Elon Musk creates this doom scenario. I mean, you talked about the network thinking for itself.
Yeah, I think that is massively attractive, because for the first time in history we are creating technology that is able to emulate the human thought, and you know, it's almost here. I mean, but at the same time, we need to think how we want this to happen. So again, I'm back to the fact that I think it's social science time. I mean, and it's time to think about it. I mean, because we are creating something that is a game changer. It is a game changer, and especially when you see it happening. So I think that it's time to have a new social contract, and what are the rights of obligation of people and machines in this new world. So I do think that, I don't think it's going to be a doom scenario. I think it's going to solve problems that doesn't have a solution right now. Climate change, or you know, some diseases, and some, it's going to be on the health side. It's going to be a game changer. But I think that time has come to decide how we want this to happen. And again, I think Europe is the right place to do that reflection.
And for this audience, I know you've been working on a PhD in economics, which is amazing given that you're also running a very important company called Telefónica, but you obviously have time to read about it. Would you single out anything interesting that you've read, or people who are talking interestingly about this subject?
I'm sorry because she's here, but there is a book called Privacy is Power by Carissa Belli that is, in my opinion, a must read.
There we go. So when do you think the singularity is going to come? And that's the technical term used for when machines are actually more intelligent than the human brain.
I was watching an interview by Eric Schmidt as of today or
That's yesterday. The former Google chair.
Yeah. He's projecting that for the next 5 years.
Oof. He's projecting it. What do you think?
I think that we are getting there. I think that you know, large language models, at the end of the day, AI or you know, generative AI, which is the right technology, is an empty brain. You need to train it. I mean, and therefore you need to train it, and it's very expensive in energy and in processing capacity. It thought that, I mean, we were all thinking that there was going to be a limit in processing capacity because of the Moore law, but now neuroformic networks are getting there, and quantum computing is probably 10 to 15 years down the road, so processing is not going to be a limitation for that. And if there is not a limitation in terms of processing capacity, and there is not going to be a limitation in terms of networks, then yeah, probably 5 years.
And on a personal note, do you have a digital assistant?
No, I mean, I use them, but I still trust my personal assistant, who has been working for me for 25 years.
He or she is very happy to hear that.
She's much smarter than I am.
There we go. Even better, definitely quotable. Now, we are standing between you and supper, I think, but I have a little surprise, and because I'm an editor, I love to deliver the occasional surprise, and José María is not. There is no coordination here, so I always play a game with a distinguished guest on stage where I play long, short. So I give 5 subjects which have not been discussed, and José María has to decide whether he's going long, which is positive, or short. So I'm going to start with Bitcoin. Long or short?
Long.
Okay. Javier Milei.
No comment.
That's fair enough. The dollar.
Still long.
Okay. Good. Brexit.
short. I hope it would be reversed.
Yes. Okay, and then for tonight, Bayern Munich.
Short.
Good, thank you.